Hello, everybody, and welcome to the start of something that's going to be a little different for the series and whatnot here. So, uh, I wanted to set up a little bit of a tips and tricks video here for anyone trying to get into Gundam Breaker, or maybe if you've been playing a little while and now you have some questions about how to do things more in depth, and I figured I could probably make a little bit of a observation about that based since I've now gone and beat the game. Anywho. So, where I want to start off is here with the various parts and whatnot. So, something I feel like is going to be very helpful in the beginning stages of building your own Gunpla is this filtering system, which ended up helping me quite a lot. Because, as you can see, when you go in here, you have all this variety of things you can look for. But I feel like the one that usually helped me the most whenever I was sorting through is, if I was playing the game, I would always sort this by new order, and then either rarity or level and rarity. It doesn't really matter, I don't really feel like. Because then what that did is it put all of your new parts down here at the bottom. And as you can see, I haven't been looking through mine well enough in the past recent bit, so they're all highlighted. But anyway, not particularly important. So what it does lets you look through your new parts easier and see if you have anything that is good or you want to bother adding in whenever you first get it while you're playing through there. Because while you do unlock the ability to do synthesis and all that around Chapter 3, so up to that point, it really doesn't matter what you're putting on your Gundam. I'd say just put on whatever is the highest quality in terms of like health and overall stats that you have, that is something you enjoy. Now obviously if you'll get something that doesn't have any OP skills and you really like your OP skills, then you're not going to want to be doing that. So, grain of salt and all that. But for the most part, when you're just playing through the game and trying to get the story complete, or like I say, if you know what you're really wanting to build, around Chapter 3, you can go and start actually truly building your Gunpla and slapping on the parts that you want and whatever. But me personally, I didn't really know what I wanted, so I waited till I ended up beating the story before I really sort of settled on a design. I kind of had a rough idea as I got towards the end, but didn't fully get it realized till afterwards. But anyway. And then from that standpoint of like designing it and whatnot, let's say if you're someone who's worried about like the OP skills, you can actually filter those things here. You can have EX, OP, burst action skills, all that kind of jazz. You can run here and filter what series it's from, what type of abilities that is even on that piece. Labels are actually something that's pretty interesting. So if you come over here and go down here to label, you can give it one of these symbols. And it's the same way you can on the ability cartridges over here, but with that it's a lot simpler because you can just be inside of here and then hit the top face button. So Y on Xbox, triangle on PlayStation, and just a quick, easy way to get these things filtered in a way, especially since you don't have any good way to get rid of these things in mass from within your parts collection area. Like, you can't synthesize these together or anything like that. They just are what they are. So like this one here, I would be marking with this red triangle because that's how I've been denoting that I want to sell them. And I'll be doing that over at the shop. But that's just my personal way of doing it again. So yeah, when it comes to building, that's kind of my general tips, is don't give it too much pressure unless you for sure know what you want to build. And once you do, go ahead and have at it. Because personally, I just sort of started building something from an aesthetic standpoint, and then I happened to come to this combination of Unicorn, Wing Gundam, and Beginning 30 Gundam that I ended up slapping together. Uh, I guess another thing that is sort of important to note is that, uh, so here at the adjust, you can adjust quite a lot of the size components of your Gunpla's various parts and whatnot. So like here, everything you can see, you can adjust its position on the XYZ coordinates. I myself can't even remember which way is which half the time, so just fiddle around with it and you'll get it figured out for the most part. To me, scale is actually the one that I end up playing with the most, that makes the most like impact and decision. And you can actually even just come in here and decide if you want your backpacks on and off. For those, for backpacks in particular. I don't think you can adjust whether or not your legs are visible. Yeah, but you can adjust if you can set whether you want to fly or walk with etc., etc. You see, like with arms, you can just adjust their size, rotation, and scale. So nothing too fancy on them. But anyway, point being, there's quite a bit of customization you can do there on the building aspect. Now, where I would say is a actual much better tip section for more of the combat-oriented section of things, I think that it's very important to come in here into the training session and try out your melee combos, because like it won't really matter as much with the ones I currently have equipped because I have the melee on. But so, with any thunk combo, you have your X attacks and you have your Y attacks. And depending on how you pair them together, so that was X, Y, then you get different things. So you have a light attack combo with the melee, which I currently have equipped, and then you have a heavy attack combo, which, so if you X is your left face button is your left weapon, and then top face button is your right-handed melee weapon. So it's pretty easy to just denote that in your head and be like, okay, this is how I'll attack. And so pretty well, if you go, actually you can't do it, but if you go with if you go to light heavy, that will pretty much always give you an attack that knocks your opponent up in the air. The melee is actually going to be the exception for that, because it does not have any attacks that knock enemies up in the air. Because I think it's because it's meant more of like a pummel your enemy kind of a thing. But anyway, the point being there isn't. And so, you can go X, X, Y. You can do any combination of X combo, Y combo, or X, Y, X, X, Y, X, 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 Y, because, none of the hits go more than a 6-hit combo. So you're going to have like a 5 or 6-hit combo with all your weapons. And at any point in there, you can substitute another like X input for a Y input, but that does technically end your combo string. There's nothing you can do, like you can't go XYX without starting a new combo technically, because when you press X, it's like if you go X Y X, there's a delay there because you're starting a new combo. So even if you go if you were to go X Y, actually with melee you can't do X Y, but say you had like an axe and a sword, you could go X Y and it would knock your opponent up in the air. And so that is how you can do a lot of things. And of course you have a combinations of attacks while you're in the air too. They're a little bit different. So that's something I very highly encourage people to do, is to go and just play around with their melee combinations and see which ones they like for the various weapons, because the weapons attack differently. Axes can charge up, swords can charge up, sabers have a spin attack, whips just whip around you. They also can pull enemies to you, which is pretty neat. Within a limited range, of course. You get your claws, your melee. Great swords also charge up. I think that's all the weapon types I can remember off the top of my head. And of course you have your ranged options. So on here I just have dual Gatling guns. And a glitchy controller. Anyway, I just have 2 Gatling guns. But, you can also pair that up any differently with any of the combination of ranged weapons. So you know, you got your Gatling guns, you got your long rifles, you got your regular rifles, you got your machine guns. And so you can do quite a lot with that, with any combination of stuff. So, like, you know, so rifles, long rifles, Gatling guns, and bazookas. And technically, there's a shotgun that I've seen floating about in here, but it's considered a rifle. It's not its own weapon type. And so, depending on how you go and build your Gundam, you can do things differently and whatnot. You can mix in ranged attacks with your melee. I just don't know that I necessarily recommend it per se. Another bit of tip here that has impacted me only recently is your amount of storage you have on your parts. So when you reach the point where you are approaching this 1500 part limit, you can actually technically exceed that so long as you weren't already at 1500 when you start a mission, apparently. Because I did. I exceeded it on my left arm and my legs by like, the legs were like 11 over, and then the arms were like 50 something over. I don't really remember. Anyway, and the only thing that I can really say on how to deal with that currently is, unless you are going to be filtering through your parts as you're getting them, like at the end of missions, which sounds very tedious and annoying to me, the only other thing I can recommend you do is synthesize them together. So, like, say you wanted to just take this here Banshee unicorn head and slap a bunch of stuff onto it to have as, like, a spare part. Like, if you weren't just trying to go ahead and use your parts to level something up anyway, which in my case isn't really going to work because I have all these low-level parts, and that's where my main issue is. I have a whole bunch of low-level nonsense that just should have gotten rid of in the earlier sections of the game, and I didn't. And so now I have, you know, hundreds of useless things lying around. And so what you would do is, let's just go ahead and keep using this Banshee one as an example. So go into the synthesis, I can speak. And to an extent, I would recommend you even go into here and change this so that you have it to where it's under like level 40-ish, and change your stars to where it's only trying to grab 3-star things. Because if you try and make it to where it is going to... So if I try to use this this rarity piece here, it says it's a high rarity if you want to use it. And then you have to do that for every time. And so anything that has an integrated part onto it or is the red star rarity or higher, it will ask you if you want to use it or not. And I find that annoying because it slows down the process, and etc., etc. But what you can do, once you do have that all set, is you can go right over here and see where it says check all displayed parts. And so on a controller, that's your select button. On mouse and keyboard, it was shift, evidently. But what you can do is you can just hit that, and you see here it highlighted everything that was highlightable, essentially. Because, again, it will always ask you if you want to filter in these parts or not. But anyway, and so that is how I largely would recommend you get rid of parts, is just either to synthesize them into something you're already working on, just for the levels, or if you're already maxed out on everything, on your ability points and your level, then just slap it onto something random and have a spare part lying around. Or if you really just don't care about it, you can sell them for gold, or Gundam points, or whatever our currency in this game is, because I don't think I was ever told. Anywho, and so speaking of synthesis, that does kind of bring us around to my next point I want to talk about. So, what synthesis is largely the most important end-game thing you can be doing, again, for just cleaning up your inventory and having space, but also because it gives you these... Oops. Because it... Oh, okay, buddy. Because it gives you these stats. So, what you end up having to do is you go into the synthesis and you look for various parts that have these abilities that you want. Now, you can only have 8 ability slots when you have this rarity maxed out. Max rarity, the more rarity you have, the more slots you have. At this one, at this top ranking, you get 8. See? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ha ha ha, I can count. Sometimes. Anyway, And then max level is 50, but 50 just the level just increases your overall base. This stuff, it increases these base numbers, and so numbers are good. And then, listen, when you're doing synthesis, you have to look through all of your parts manually. There's no way to filter for specific ability parts, unfortunately. You can try to do some of this stuff where it's like filter it by base ability stat order, things like that, or come over here into these filters and filter by these and all that. So there's a little bit that you can do to make it better, but most of the time I'm just coming over here and I'm sorting by new order. Sorting by alphabetical, new order. No, not new order. Alphabetical, level order, and rarity order. Because then I can just come through here and I can look through all my double O parts and then be like, okay, I've done the double O's. Next, I'll go through all my double O quants and see if it has anything I'm needing. And then, if I see something I need, I slap it in there and I synthesize it. If I don't see what I'm needing, then I leave it alone. As far as when I'm actually intentionally building a synthesis part. And so that's kind of the gist of it. As far as what all the abilities do, because some of them are worded strangely, I am considering making a video on that. However, I'm not sure that I even know what all of them are myself quite yet, so I guess stay tuned and see if that pumps up. Oh, another very important thing. When you max out a part's rarity, they gives you what is called skill mastery. And so what that means is, see how this has the Beam Gatling shield funnel ability on it as an EX skill? So because I maxed out that thing's rarity, I can now actually equip this EX skill on any of my Gundams, regardless if I actually have this arm equipped. So if I were to go and slap on some double Zeta arms, for instance, I could still use this EX skill. And it works, but it does visually change your component that gives you said slot to like a interesting holographic function when you're doing it. So there is a little bit of a visual ness to it, if that's something that will bother you. But anywho, so there's that. And same thing, it works for your OP skills, it works for your burst actions as well. So that's fair. It's a very good way to get a burst action that you really like and want to have hold of and make use of and all that. That is that. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was specifically the ranged options. So the ranged weapons all play very differently, in my personal opinion. Just because some, like, two rifles even can, like, function a little bit differently in the way they fire or the sounds they make or, like, the aesthetic look they have. Because, for instance, I noticed when there was quite a lot of beam sabers, and just because it was a beam saber did not mean that it looked the same as another beam saber. Either the beam itself was a little bit different color, or like maybe in some length and variation. Anyway, just point being, everything has a little bit of nuance to it, and particularly with building ranged weapons, there's a lot of nuance to it, because you can get as specific as this. So you can see here, I have the long range gauge cost specifically for a right-handed Gatling weapon is being reduced by this percentage. So that means this weapon specifically, which you can't actually see because I have it meshed into the arm that I have, it specifically is being reduced by that percentage. And so, that could be right long rifle, that could be right bazooka, etc., etc. You can get very nuanced with how you are building weapons and synthesizing them together and all that kind of jazz. And that can be a lot. Melee is a lot simpler to build, in my opinion. While you do still have, like, right whip, your left and right weapons of specific variety, you also have things like melee, which are two-handed, and therefore hold less skills overall, but it does make it simpler to build them, because you're just looking for that one skill, as far as, your melee weapon. However, I will say that for things that have two hands, you should be better off making, even if you're just gonna like be using the weapon in your right hand, you're better off equipping a left-handed weapon as well, and then stacking abilities onto it to increase your right-hand weapon's damage, because there's no reason not to. Otherwise it's just sitting there with an empty hand, and it gives you better combos. Shield bash, for instance, if you don't have anything equipped and you press X, you're just gonna do a shield dash, and it's not very good. Doesn't really combo into anything. So I recommend putting something else on there. Shields are kind of just shields in my personal opinion. Like, they do have some good skills. Like, you can see here I have a bunch of long range abilities tied onto here, and so it's giving me a little bit of a percentage, which every little bit adds up if you do it enough. Builder parts are actually very interesting. So I have these funnels here on my back, right here, because I wanted them to represent the feathers on my wings, and I thought it was cool. And so each funnel is its own EX point to use. So if I only had 6 on here, it only cost 6 to use, but since I do have 6. Since I have 6 on here, it costs 6 to use. If I only had 4, it only costs 4. Anywho, but funnels do more damage the more of them that are together, in the sense that they attack faster and all that. So I liked the idea of having a big skill to throw out whenever I had some spare EX gauge around. So that's what I did. And then I haven't put anything on the final 2 because I haven't decided if I want to, or if I'm just going to leave it as is. Let's say, comes to EX skills. It's mostly equipped what you want to. There are some skills that are like a little bit better than others as far as like the damage you get out versus the cost they have and all that kind of jazz. But it's really just build what you want. It'll all work at the end of the day. It's a PvE game and all that, so it doesn't really matter. Let's say OP skills, they kind of matter a little bit more than your EX skills in a way, because they're going to be much more of like your bread and butter in terms of what you're commonly hitting like your opponents with and whatnot. On this Gundam in particular, I'm actually using the OP palette too, because it ended up developing into much more of a ranged focused build than what I originally intended. And then these are all my like melee, with the exception of the missile, but there's just a missile to toss out. It's kind of something to put on there so that I had things to do if I wasn't going to be using my range stuff for the most part, because I can just alternate between these abilities on like a constant cooldown with how quickly they come back and all that. So yeah, there's that. Now, ability cartridges. This is a large section of the game, and it's something I haven't really explored as in depth as I need to yet, because I'm sure I have stuff that's better than what I currently have on here anyway. But these are where you can get a lot of like really good skills that you can get elsewhere, but you can get them here in a lot larger quantity. So like, look here for instance. So how it says long range gauge recovery speed for long, it's being downed by 22%, which is obviously not good. However, there's a flip side to that where it could improve it by 22%. So you could make it to where your long range recovery gauge is just coming back super fast. I have mine mostly here, as you can see. I have it mostly doing HP and item drop rate and quality. That's mostly what I was doing, because I was grinding through the end of the story and all that. And yes. And then everything else is kind of secondary. But anywho, so these are where you're going to spend a lot of your time looking for things. And to compare it to that Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, these are like your anomaly part things that you can go and grind for that were completely randomized and were a pain to get, because if you got the right things, you can make your build super duper good. If you don't get the right things, you're having to run more missions and get more parts and so sort through them more and all that jazz that comes along with it. Now, speaking of running through missions and whatnot, another way you can do the synthesis process is here with plastic. However, as you can see, I have very few parts enhanced plastic, and I have quite a lot of parts evolved plastic. The reasoning for that is because you get so much more parts evolve, and you, so far, in my experience, are not needing anywhere near this much parts evolve, because parts evolve increases your item's rarity, and the parts enhance increase your item's level. And what I've been doing is I've been running the survival mission that is at the end of that you unlock towards the end of the game, because it just throws waves and waves and waves of enemies at you, and so it should be a great place to farm up plastic, especially with your boosters. However, I'll go and run that mission, and I'll not even get enough level up plastic to fully do one part, or like finish leveling a part. Like, I'll get like 1,000, and that won't get it to 50. So I'm not sure if there's a better source that I simply haven't found yet, or what that is, but that's what I'll say, is that plastic's important in that regard, especially the level up plastic. So I'd say only really level up your parts if you know you're wanting to use them. People might disagree with me on that. That's my personal opinion. So, and unless you can get part like level from these various parts you synthesize on. Obviously, these level 1s and 2s don't do anything. Like, I stopped seeing good results. Like, if parts are below level, like, 30, like, the bar just stops creeping up on the level. Because when you're going in your synthesizing, you can look at the... gotta put my mouse. You can look here in this bar and, like, see as your level up increases. That's the other thing. I haven't observed it yet, but when you are synthesizing, it will take multiple, like, you could have like multiple level 24s inside of your parts you're synthesizing together, and you're not guaranteed to jump straight to 30. So there is like an obvious, same way like with like any level up system in like a game, the higher the level something is, the more XP you need to do it. And so, you know, a level 1 part has way less experience than a level 24 ability part does. And so you might see a bit of a fluctuation in when you're adding parts on and all that. And to talk a little bit about movement, because I feel like there is a certain degree of nuance with it. So obviously anyone can wiggle their stick around with this, but something that I have noticed is that there's a little bit of a trick whenever you're like dashing around and stuff like that. Also, like, you do have your dodge thing. I have never used it in the game, hardly. I can think of one particular instance where I was using the dodge and it was helpful, and it wasn't better to just rush straight in. But granted, I'm mainly building like I'm much more melee focused whenever I'm playing and whatnot. And so, you know, maybe that's just my personal bias. But, you know, for instance, if you are dashing around someone like this, and like this is me pushing full forward on the stick, and you can see how slowly I am kind of just orbiting around them. Like, I'm not really getting any closer to them. So if you want to, like, get closer to an opponent, you can't just constantly dash. You have to, like, stop dashing for a moment and then re-engage the direction you're dashing. So if I start going this way, I'm holding forward on the stick now. If I stop dashing, still hold forward on the stick, and start dashing again, you'll see I make a beeline for them. So that's something that I kind of had to learn and figure out. Also, you know, same thing if you're flying around, you dash around people and whatnot, and you can, you know, I'd say this way to, like, if you're above someone, you're trying to hit them, just be above them and then tap your button again so you can fast fall. Or fall break or sky breaker. I forget what they called it. But you know what I mean. Do the thing that lets you get out of that sky faster. And then all that is further enhanced if you activate a hypertrance, like the NTD or the Zero system or anything like that. Anything that increases your move speed, which you actually can see here. Over here, increases move speed, increases jump speed, etc. That can make a little bit of... It can make it a little tricky to do some of your combos. Like, for instance, if you're trying to do like a little short hop up in the air and then come over here and smack your opponent around. then it can make it a little bit harder to do that because you're jumping higher, so you can tell the difference. This is my normal jump. If I activate my hypertrance, I jump higher. So it makes it a little bit tricky for that. So you either have to like get in the air and immediately tap your melee buttons, or like float back down, which obviously wastes more time. Blah blah blah. So yeah, there's that. And something else that I've noticed is kind of interesting. So let's say with this stats menu, you can see here you have this variety of things that are being buffed by my hypertrance. All hypertrances buff the same things. So boost, jump, movement, close range reaction speed, which means how fast you can attack with melee. That's what that means for the record. And then improved attack power. And then if you were to awaken, you can see you get a different set of abilities. You get the actual awaken stat. You get increased fleet damage capacity, HP recovery per second, increased long range gauge, and improved attack. And some of those things stack. So you can see you don't get double increased attack because Awaken gives it to you and Hypertrance gives it to you as well. You don't get to stack those, unfortunately. It'd be kind of funny if you could, but you can get the improved attack power over here from the hit combo. You do get that. If you keep up your hit combo and keep it at level 9, then you get even more damage. But this is what your full buff technically looks like. And so there is that. And something that I have found that's kind of interesting. And so I have this barrage skill on here, right? And so if you look up here, mouse. Oh, you can't. Okay, so if you look above where my moves are being shown, like so below my health bar there, you can see the total, and it said like 100,000 or whatever it was. Oh, sorry, not 100,000. Yes, 100,000. Okay, yeah, well, 188,000. Anyway, yes, numbers, very cool. So first off, it took me forever to notice that gauge was even there. So I was doing all these like if I would activate my funnels, I would let them go on a little rampage and whatnot, and I would try and do the math myself. Like, okay, it hits for 7751, and it does it X number of times. And so if I do the multiplication, blah blah blah, I'd get the total damage number. You don't have to do that. Now it does have that funny little thing there you saw just then of if they don't attack consecutively enough, then they will not, but then your damage, the total can fall off. So sometimes you do have to go and still do the calculations manually if you're really concerned with all that. But anyway, point being, so what's funny here is that you can do this, which is a combination of things. And if you do it like this, you can tell, I got more damage there. Quite a bit more damage. And so that's something why, again, I encourage people to play around with here in the training mode, because if I hadn't happened to have my Hypertrance active while in training mode and been using my Awaken skill, I probably honestly never would have noticed like the difference in damage that I'm doing. Because, an extra 150,000 damage is nothing to scoff at. Especially in some of these late game boss fights and whatnot. Well, not boss fights, missions. Because it's actually not very good in boss fights for whatever reason. You're much better just meleeing bosses, I feel like. At least with the way that my builds are. But also bosses have like such big bodies. If you have anything that pierces them or like hits in a large AoE, it destroys their health bar. It's actually kind of funny. So like long rifles, for instance, are pretty good for that in my opinion. Or like the atomic bazooka. But, anywho, so, point being, play around in this training mode, something I highly encourage. I feel like it's one of your best ways to learn. And, yeah, I feel like that is quite a bit of my knowledge for the building section of things. For a little bit more information here, like on the mission desk.
This is the mission.
So story mode, or story missions, obviously story, that's how you go through the main campaign. Quests are side quests, essentially, you get for completing each chapter. And as you can see here, there is a Pac-Man quest currently. I actually haven't seen if there's any real good reason to do it on a higher difficulty, but it's literally just you play Pac-Man by running around and collecting all the pills. So it's kind of funny if nothing else. But yeah, so these are just other variety of quests, and as you can see, like with here, you get different targets for each of the various things. I haven't done the ones for Chapter 6 yet, because I've been busy doing other things. So, yeah. Do those. Bounty Hunt is kind of interesting, because it is where you can go and actually fight other players' custom Gunplas. So you can see here, you have to pick 3 to fight. So if you just look at the first top 3 here, because I'm not going to bother looking through all of it, then it would be those. So it'd be whatever that combination of things was. And, depending on what level they are and all that, it can be hard or not, because my friend and I tried to fight one that had a part that he was hoping to try and get, and it was like a max, like dang near max level build or something like that, and it would have one-shot us. Like, there was no way for us to complete it because we did like no damage to it, and it one-shot us. So there is some nuance to playing through that and all that. Now then, survival missions is what I was talking about earlier. This is a 50-wave mission type thing. Think of it like any other standard mission, but instead of ending at 3 waves, this one has 50 of them. And every 5 waves, so at 5, 10, 15, 20, you get the idea. There is a boss battle to do. I think they're actually pretty fun. I enjoy the boss battles more than I enjoy fighting the little Gunpla, but that's me. And it increases in difficulty as you go. So, like, when you start off, in the first thing, you might be one-shotting your enemies. At the end of it, you are not one-shotting squat. Because at the end of it, like, it's fairly common to see, mini-boss dudes that have, like, 4 or 5 health bars. And so, yeah, as you can see, it takes a decent chunk of time. My best time so far is 46 minutes. And as I see it, there's no way to increase like the difficulty or anything like that. Like, there's no way to put it on hardcore mode or or new type difficulty or anything like that. So yeah, that is everything I see in regards to missions. I really think that's kind of my main things that I would say that you need to know for like a beginner's guide. That's how you build. That's how you can customize. Some do's and don'ts, things I learned the hard way. Take your time with it. Have fun. It's a cool game. There obviously are some things that are going to be a little bit annoying that I'm hoping that they might try and fix, either with an update or maybe will be better in the next game. Specifically, the ability to sort through your parts based on ability to make synthesizing easier and things like that. But we will have to wait and see. So, I think with all that said, I'll wrap this up. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in that next one. Bye-bye.